Oh, man. Oh, we got a good one for you today, boys and girls. Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott, and you are in the Prog Corner, where today on the exclusive live Sunday Prog stream, we're going to be talking about 1971, one of the best years in the history of music, and certainly one of the best years in the history of prog music. So I decided we'd put together an all-star panel. I've got Kevin from Prog Radio in the house. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing great. We've been playing these albums all morning.
Have you been? Good,
Yeah.
good. How about you, Wayne? Have you been doing likewise, doing your homework?
Yeah, I've been doing my homework on this. This was extremely hard.
It's Wayne from Pocket Full of Heap in the house. As always, Matt O'Leary is back. He was so good last time. We had to have him back. Matt, how you doing today?
Doing great, Scott. I'm pretty stoked.
Good. This is going to be a good subject. I can't wait to hear your take on this. Scott G. Davis, Myth of Logic, the myth, the legend, the guy with albums that ranked in the top 20, not just in 2024, but 2023 and 2022 also. All three of the Mythologic albums are highly ranked by Prog Archives, and it's none other than the mastermind of Mythologic, Scott Davis. How are you? Welcome back.
I'm real fine. It's great to be back. I've missed you guys.
50 years from now, we'll be doing this show ranking Scott's albums.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I am working on the next one as we speak. I'm about 2 songs deep.
Nice.
So,
Uh-oh. Yeah, there are many great secrets and stories that will be told about the fourth Mythologic album, but we're not here to break any news here today, are we, Scott?
No.
Okay.
The new album will be coming next year, and I am going to use a live drummer, and you do know who he is. That's all I'm going to say, and that's all anybody should say.
Cody,
Why is Cody going like this?
Cody, what do you have to say about this? What's going on? Why were you gesticulating while he was talking about having a live drummer on the new album?
Because live drummers are fun.
Oh, okay. Hey, everybody, it's Cody from Brockway's Vinyl Bites. Cody, how are you?
I'm super glad to be back. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I have a house full of awesome Irish people, as Tara obviously is living here, but she's got 2 friends from Ireland that have come to visit her, so they're here for a week and a half, and we've been having a lot of fun. We've been having a good time, and so lots of Thin Lizzy being played.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing.
Nothing wrong with that.
No complaints. No complaints.
And last but not least, rounding out the all-star panel, his inaugural appearance, his debut on the Prog Corner. Man, I've wanted this cat on the show forever. It's none other than Dave from the Album Review channel. Dave, better late than never, man.
Oh, I tell you what, Scott, it's been absolutely pathetic, hasn't it? We've had so many problems. I'm on the phone, so if I start wandering or weaving or whatever, you'll know that my arm's getting stiff.
Man, that's all right. We're just happy to have you on the channel for your debut. So, yeah, I don't care. I could have you on, a roller coaster. It wouldn't matter with the phone in your hand. That'd actually be kind of cool. That's not a bad idea. We should all do that. Like next time, we should all be outside doing physical activities while doing the live stream. But today, we are just doing 1971. I talked about picking out 4 albums. Actually, Cody, this was his plan, right? This was your topic, so I'll give credit where credit is due. But nonetheless, I decided we were going to really spotlight 4 albums: Fragile, Nursery Crime, Aqualung, and Tarkus. But, we can talk about any album we want, but I do want those 4 albums ranked. You can talk about a couple albums from that year that, you thought maybe should have been in that top 4. I think they're the right 4, but if somebody's got a better idea, that's fine. It's the Prog Corner. There are no rules, right, Kevin? We do what we want here.
Do whatever you want. I think you picked the right 4.
I think so, too. Yeah, absolutely.
Although the Gentle Giant hat is a giveaway of your true allegiance.
Hey, now, speaking of true allegiance, Kevin, it appears to me both you and I are wearing the Emerald City Council shirt. Hey,
I'm surprised Brett's not here.
We didn't even speak ahead of time.
No.
It just kind of happened that way. So very, very cool. And in keeping with that, here we go. The Emerald
There you
City
go. That's a
Council
good-looking hat, by the way.
It's a really, really nice hat. It's very
the merch is
comfortable. I
really
can't wear
nice.
it right
Like
now.
these are real
Yeah.
heavyweight T-shirts.
Yep.
So I'm guessing he's probably selling it. over there on his
Redbubble
website or whatever. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Redbubble.
Kevin, I want you to kind of go first because I always like to put our best foot forward and pretend like we're a professional operation here. And, you got the Prog Radio branding behind you and all, professional and whatnot. So what says you about 1971 and why do you think I picked the right 4 records?
Well, I looked at them, and there's obviously a lot of great ones. You got the Gentle Giant, the Caravan, the Van de Graaff Generators. I see Matt's sending some subliminal messages there in his background. But I think the Yes album, I think you could sneak in there as the 5th, but I think you picked the right 4. And so what I did, because I like to be scientific about things, because I knew Scott's going to have an argument, so I got to have some science to back me up.
Ooh,
so I did it on 9 different criteria, and I'm going to run through them really fast, so don't worry, it's not going to take long. First criteria, commercial success. Aqualung, hands down, smoked it, the biggest commercial success. And then Fragile obviously did really well as well. So commercial success went to Aqualung. Importance to the band as far as turning around. I think Yes was super important, or Fragile was super important. You hear all the stories, the band would have broken up had Fragile not been successful. So incredibly important to the band. So Fragile takes the lead on that one. Innovation and influence. I'm going to give the edge to Fragile with Tarkus coming in at 2nd. Number 4, cohesiveness. I'm going to drop Tarkus down there. Are you ready, Eddie, for that? But I think the Fragile and Aqualung win that one. Musicianship and technical prowess. I'm giving that to Emerson, Lake and Palmer with a close second to Fragile. I'm actually putting Aqualung down at the bottom. It's just a good old rock and roll record at the end of the day. 6, longevity. How long are we still listening to this stuff? And Fragile and Aqualung, the clear winners there. Lyrical concept, I'm going to give that one to Aqualung. And Fragile's going to drop down a bit, and certainly the ELP one drops down on that. Album art, hello, Roger Dean. You're going to take this top spot with the Yes album. And then number 9, the most important category, my personal preference. And that was number 1, Aqualung. I can't imagine living in a world without that album and with what came after it, Thick as a Brick and all the rest. So that holds a very special place in my heart. Number 2, Fragile. It's the first Yes album I ever bought. Still a super important album to me. So I then took those. I did some math. You get 4 points for a number 1 and so on. And the winner is Fragile, 31 points based on all 9 of those criteria. Aqualung, 26 points, Tarkus 20, and Genesis 13. Now, Genesis is my favorite progressive rock band. They're my second favorite band of all time after the Beatles. So it seems weird they're way down there, but when you really think about it, all the great stuff that was going to come from Genesis with Foxtrot and Selling England and Lamb Lies Down. So I actually kind of agree with how the math totaled out here. So that's how I've got it.
Okay.
Nice.
I like math. I really do. I like it when we're doing this all like scientific and whatnot. Awesome stuff. But yeah, man, that's that's
Cool.
good math, but anytime we've got somebody like cutting in and out of the feed, I get scared and I get worried. And Dave, what's going on? Are you all right down there?
Oh man, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Talk to me, Dave. Talk to me. Let's go. Let's do some
Don't
Dave,
worry about it.
the album review guy. Talk to me about 1971. And I know you're on your cell phone, so make sure you're talking right into it, so that we can hear you decent.
Okay. Let's do a sound check first. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Just keep talking loud and we got you.
Oh, I do talk loud. I can do that all day long. We've got 4 really brilliant albums here. I love these. I've got 3 of them as a 10 out of 10, and I've got 1 of them as a strong 9. And I sat down and I thought, well, the best way to do this is to which would I like to listen to most of all, and I've done my ranking based on that. So My 9 out of 10 album is Tarkus. Now, I love ELP and I love this album. I think it's a really good album, but I have a problem with like the second side. It doesn't really do anything for me. The first side's majestic and I really, really like it. But it feels as if the other 6 tracks on the other side, are they fillers? I don't really know. And that's what brings it down for me. So my number 4 is Tarkus. Now then, surprise, surprise, my number 3 is Nursery Crime. Now, those who have a listen to my channel, they'll know I'm a massive Genesis fan, and I would say that they are my band. And really, I think on this one, it's a darn good album. I really, really like it. But what you've got is, you've got Phil coming in, you've got Steve coming in, and I don't quite think they're firing on all cylinders at this point. It's a darn good album, no problems about that. It's a little bit underrated, but it's one that I really do like, and I think it's got 3 absolute belters on it. That's The Musical Box, Giant Hogweed, and The Fountain of Salmachus. And those 3 are absolutely stunning tracks. The others, they're okay, but I don't think we weren't on full scale 100% Genesis at that point. That's for me. And number 2, here we go. I've gone for the concept album, i.e. Aqualung. Just love this one. I think it was a high point in Jethro Tull's career. Many people think it's probably their best album, and I might not disagree with that. There's a couple others that I do like, but it's a full top-notch 10 out of 10 album. Full belters on this one. So Genesis had 3, Aqualung have got 4. They've got the title track, Aqualung, crediting obviously Ian Anderson's wife Jenny in that one. Cross-Eyed Mary, love that track. My God, and Locomotive Breath. There's 4 really, really good tracks there. The rest of them are okay. It's less filler, more thriller, but 4 belters for me on that one. So my number 1 then is Fragile. I hope Jeff Schalker's watching. We welcome Rick Wakeman, so that's a major, major plus. There's some criticism, isn't there, for the solo tracks? I quite like them. I thought they were quite unique and novel. The first Roger Dean cover, I think, as Kevin said, a 10 out of 10 album, and this gets the number 1 spot because it's got 5 belters for me. Roundabout, South Side of the Sky. I love that track. I really could listen to that one all day. Long Distance Runaround, The Fish. I love that live version he does. Is it in Vienna? Chris Squire on that, absolutely sensational. And Heart of the Sunrise. So that's my 4, hopefully ranked on the fact that what would I like to sit down and listen.
Nice.
Solid ranking.
Yep.
Not bad at all. We just wanted to get you in first, just in case we had more problems with your Wi-Fi or your camera or whatever. But stick around because the best part of the show is coming up next, boys and girls. It's where I get to tell Wayne how wrong he is about every single thing he has to say. Every opinion he has is categorically wrong. Empirical data notwithstanding, because I'm sure Kevin could probably put together a spreadsheet on why Wayne is wrong more times than he's right. But,
this is not fair, Wayne.
We love you, Wayne. You're not anybody's punching bag, man.
Wayne's awesome.
No. Looking at this is really hard because I think the margin between a lot of these albums is razor thin, and it very much is a lot of what do you really like about these albums. And so for me, this was hard. I've probably had the least experience with any of these albums out of anybody here. So here's my list. At number 4, I had to put something down there, and this might shock some people. I put Fragile, number 4.
Okay.
I already know, Scott, you're going to say I'm wrong.
Scott hits the delete button immediately.
Yeah. But
That was very brief.
the reason
that
why I
smoke I can
put
see?
Fragile number 4 is I thought about how often do I go back to these albums? How often do I go back to these songs? And other than maybe Roundabout, South Side of the Sky, Long Distance, Run Around the Fish, and Heart of the Sunrise, the rest of the album, I don't listen to it very much. And that's kind of my reason for putting it number 4.
Jeff Shilkin's got it right.
Nice one, Jeff.
I think your time here is done, sir.
Oh,
We don't
man.
need to hear the rest of your picks.
Number 3 for me is Nursery Crime. I absolutely love this record a lot. I think this is, in my opinion, one of Genesis's more underrated records that they had, because there's still that Phil Collins and Steve Hackett are still in the band, but there's still that little carryover from Anthony Phillips and the rest of them. And I think The Musical Box is a fantastic track. Return of the Giant Hogweed is fantastic. Mountain of Cell, Mac is just a great track. But even Seven Stones, Harold the Barreled Harlequin, I think they're serviceable tracks on this. And it's just one of those albums I just keep going back to with Genesis a lot. And you can see like the foundation of where it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number
Exactly.
2 for me is Tarkus. I love this record a lot. This is probably my favorite Emerson, Lake and Palmer album. I see, Scott, you're already making, well, don't know, but
Favorite
it's
Emerson, Lake and Palmer album.
yeah, like I love the title track to this. But the rest of it's not bad, with Jeremy Bender, Bitches Crystal, The Only Way Him, Infinite Space, Conclusion, Time and a Place, Are You Ready, Eddie? It's different because it isn't the title track, but it also shows a whole different side to Emerson, Lake and Palmer, where they can do all these different things musically.
Yeah, I like
And
side
it's just-
2. I think side 2 gets slagged a little bit too much. I think it's fun. And Peter Jones, yeah, I was wrong. I was thinking for some reason we were going to have the great Harold from Harold's Prog Rock channel today. It's actually, mark your calendars, boys and girls, because who's not excited about the return of the Dutch Nightmare Harold from his fantastic YouTube channel? He's back December 22nd. So mark, that's
Okay.
my birthday gift to all of you. We get to enjoy Harold the Barrel back on the show again.
Also, the shows will go back to 90 minutes on that day.
Inevitably, right? Yeah, it'll just be me and him, and it'll still be a 90-minute show.
Bless him.
And number 1, the album that a lot of people consider the Dark Side of the Moon before Dark Side of the Moon, Aqualung. And this album, it's different than the other albums conceptually, like from musical standpoint, but this album kills it. Well, from Aqualung, Cross-Eyed Mary, Cheap Day Returns, Mother Goose, Wondering Aloud, Up to Me. Side 2, you have My God, Hymn 43, Slipstream, Locomotive Breath, Wind Up. Like, it's one of those albums I listen to and I'm like, this is Jethro Tull. From this, then you get Thick as a Brick, you get Passion Play, Minstrel in the Gallery, all that stuff. But listening to this, if they had quit with just this record, this would have been a great record to go out on. Even if they never topped it, never did anything else, you could make the argument that this would be like their Mona Lisa. And it's one of those things, Ian Anderson working with, I believe this is the last one with Clive Bunker in the band as the drummer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Martin Barr on drums, or on guitar, I mean. just Ian Anderson's acoustic playing, Martin Barr's electrical playing, just the way they were always able to complement each other on these. And I remember seeing an interview with Martin Barr where he said the opening riff to this was written by Ian Anderson, which just killer. But for me, this album is my number one. I could listen to this for days. A couple more albums from 1971 that could have maybe put on here. For me personally, Metal by Pink Floyd would be one that could have made this list. Uriah Heep, you could either say Salisbury or Look at Yourself from the same year could have been on this. Who's Next? Vandergraaf Generator's Pawn Hearts. Frank Zappa's Fillmore East could have definitely been on this. So that's my ranking.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, and there were so many great records that year. So, we did pick the right four, obviously, but when I put this question to my followers on other social media platforms, I'm on Blue Sky. Who's on Blue Sky?
Yeah.
I'm on the X too. Yeah. I'm not going away. You gotta, see what's going on all sides. But I am on Blue Sky. I am on Instagram, on Facebook, and I asked the question, what is the best album of 1971? And I had a whole bunch of people mention that First Utterance album by Comus, however you pronounce them. A lot of great records. Who's Next, right? That was 71.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
was Deep Purple and Rock 71?
70.
70?
Yeah.
And then Fireball would have been 71 there?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there?
And then Teaser and Firecat, Cat Stevens.
Great.
That was 71. So
somebody mentioned Ram by Paul McCartney. It's
First
a great
Utterance.
album.
Ram. Yep.
Yeah.
Gracious. Bowie. How about Bowie? Hunky Dory. Some people say it's better than Ziggy. I don't think so. Tapestry. Yeah, you got Wakeman tinkling away on Cat Stevens and on Bowie Records in 71. Didn't Egg's second album come out in 71? The Polite Force. Soft Machine 4 came out in 71. And I'm glad you mentioned two great albums in 71 by Uriah Heep. I love them both. But what says you, Matt? We haven't talked to you in forever, man. I am so... Nick Drake. Brighter Later.
Oh, nice one.
Yeah. Does not get much better than that. So, what do you think, Matt? What's going on with 1971?
This year is as great as we all thought it was.
Yeah.
It's like all these albums have built up in lore and reputation, and their album art is so iconic. And we sort of think maybe we have rose-colored glasses and we think they're better than they actually are. The time has built them up to something bigger. But going back and actually carefully listening to each of these, it was like, yep, they deserve it because they are really great. And all of them are 10 out of 10s. And you're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't with which one you're going to put in the last spot, because it implies that you don't love the album. But that's just not the case for me, because my fourth was a bit of a surprise to me when I re-listened through. I thought this one would be somewhere in the middle, but was Aqualung. And I think with me, I just like the kind of classical intricacies of Tarkus a little bit more, which I expected maybe to be my fourth. So Aqualung, more heavy blues based. It's really a riff album. Martin Barr's he was on one with this. There's so many iconic riffs. I actually really like the softer, folkier side of this album, and even Jethro Tull in general with their kind of heavy horses. Period. So that's kind of my favorite era of the band. And so this sort of like heavier, almost Led Zeppelin-esque rock side, although I'm a huge Zeppelin fan, just for that reason can't compare to me to some of these other albums. I do love about Jethro Tull that this doesn't feel like their zenith. It's not like their peak. It feels like they have so many different eras and they're always progressing and there's always something new throughout the 70s. So there's lots of different eras and little pockets of the band's discography that people could call their top, their peak. But yes, Aqualung comes in at number 4. I love Mother Goose, Wandering Aloud, like I said, kind of the softer acoustic-led stuff. And then number 3 for me, I kind of agree with you, Scott, that this one, the side B, always gets the hate. That's the criticism where it comes in. But for me, it's really fun, really interesting, and that is Tarkus. All those songs I'm really into. The Only Way, in particular, I just think is brilliant. And the way that leads into that next track. But all those songs, Bitches Crystal, I think it may be the epicness and the grand scale of that first track that makes those feel, just by contrast, like they're lighter weight.
Yeah.
But for me, just as individual tracks and moments, I love the experiments. Even the last track, like I love hearing them do that kind of thing, and just the playfulness and obvious like fun they're having with that kind of song. I love Greg Lake's voice. It's just so rich, and this is kind of his peak, I feel like, in just his vocal tone. And then Keith Emerson just going absolutely insane. This one grew on me, especially amongst these 4 when I listened closely, and especially like a really good pair of headphones. I feel like I'd heard this like on Spotify with a little, in-ear buds before, but just actually getting deeper into it sonically was good. So that's Tarkus. It's interesting that you mentioned metal, because I feel like similar structures there where you have, and even Fragile a little bit, where you have like some of these big tracks and these big epics, and then a bunch of kind of odds and ends that people tend to slander. But similar with metal, I kind of like all the other tracks that aren't echoes too. And then number 2 for me, I think the biggest topic of conversation I hear with this one is structure, and that is Fragile. That it has these big tracks. The 4, I think, Wayne, you mentioned, they probably add up to something like a 30-minute album in and of themselves, those 4 tracks that are kind of the cohesive band sound. But then you got all these little solo efforts. And I think it really is like emblematic of the time period, because you have like the individuality of each player coming out. And there's a bit of ego that comes with that. But I think that's something I'd love to see bands do more of these days, is kind of show their individual chops and not be afraid to go there. And that also is representative of the time itself, because this was a time when these bands thought more was more. And that was the spirit in the air, was we're going to give it everything we have. We're going to put all these notes on the page, kind of show like how far just the human capacity can go. Whereas I feel like
more is more, and it meant more money too. Because if you think about these bands, Genesis hadn't broken yet, but Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Yes, and Jethro Tull were making money, selling millions of copies of albums, filling stadiums, having songs played on the radio all across this ginormous country called the United States of America. And yeah, the labels were going along with it because the money was great, right? So more meant more. And 71 is kind of where it just really got frenzied and crazy with all these sidelong epics. And it just was arguably one of the best years ever.
Yeah, and there was just a spirit in the air of like excitement about uncharted territory. There were places musically to go that hadn't been explored yet. And these bands went there, and you could feel that kind of collective excitement amongst this, especially British scene, of like, we're going to take it there. We're going to go and do something that felt risque, in the time period, and was pushing beyond. But it also married to the sacred. You think of like Tarkus, and it's like there's a lot of classical beauty in that music, but it's also like pretty profane and out there and crazy. So it's kind of that marriage of those two things. So Fragile was my number 2. I love all the individual experiments. There's really not a moment that I feel like is too much, because again, I feel like that's the spirit of the album, is just going above and beyond and breaking boundaries. So my number 1, then, that means I think Kevin mentioned that he had all these different categories. The one you forgot is just Giving Me the Feels, which is Nursery Crime. for that one, just on a very subjective level, is special to me. And I think it's a similar album to Fragile in a sense, because it's a new start for the band. You had Rick Wakeman coming in, and you also had Phil Collins, and it feels like the band's finally kind of settled, but they're not where they want to be quite yet. There's still build, and there's still movement there, and that's especially true with Nursery Crime. I love the naivety kind of this album.
Yeah.
The production isn't perfect, whereas if you look at Fragile, the album sounds incredible. Nursery Crime, there's kind of some, idiosyncrasies with the production. And
yeah, it ain't right. The drums sound just as wrong, and they had no control over the low end. I mean, the bass is just all over sonically. It's a mess. Adds to the charm, but comparing it to Fragile from the same year, yeah, it's like on a different planet.
Totally. Yeah. And so I kind of love that, like, the naive, almost like childlike wonder of these young guys in this sound. But you can hear the excitement of Phil Collins and how much he brings to this band, along with Hackett. But I think especially Collins, this just feels like one of the best debuts for any band member, any new band member, to show his chops with his voice and a little bit of, co-writing on some songs with Hackett and things. All those softer songs on the album. Can't remember what the second one is called, but featuring Phil. I love it.
Perhaps and Friends.
Yeah, and it's building up to what's my favorite album by them, which is Foxtrot, which is similar again to Fragile, because Close to the Edge is my favorite, and it's kind of building up to that moment. So, I love the odd Englishness of this album. The Victorians, kind of oddity, the experiments, the boundary pushing, the tapping from Hackett, all these new things, and just the excitement in the sound.
Yeah, incredible. And you know what else is incredible, Matt? Is this dude Christopher in the comments, who just keeps rambling one great album after another. It's ridiculous. The more I researched 1971, the more I realized, hey, Morris is in the peanut gallery. Hey, Morris, we miss you. We're gonna have Morris back on. What do you think, Wayne? Should we have Morris back on at some point?
Yeah,
he was
back
good.
on.
Yeah, we like Morris. Any final thoughts, Matt, about 71 and the 4 albums we had picked out?
It's just a really great list. There's so many more to mention. We mentioned, I think, Gentle Giants, Acquiring the Taste, right? That was 71.
Yes.
Yeah.
Caravans in the Land of Gray and Pink.
Yeah.
I have Mahavishnu's Intermounting Flame, which is probably the first jazz fusion album. And if you just want like insane playing, there's really nothing better, in my opinion. So good time. Definitely. Great picks, Matt. Fantastic.
Well done.
Scott G. Davis. I didn't even know you were coming on here today, so I'm really excited.
Neither did I.
Man, Birth Control, Christopher. Oh, yeah, what a great album that is. I forgot all. Oh, no. Taz Lemmings by Amandul too. I forgot about that one. It's just crazy. What a year. What a year, Scott.
Well, I would like to point out, first of all, that there is absolutely no correct answer to this question. These are 4 masterpieces of progressive rock and 4 of the cornerstones of absolutely everything that came after it, including what I'm working on myself. So there's no right or wrong order for these. It's really what each of us on this panel today is speaking from our own heart, because we're all going to get
well said, Scott. That's absolutely incorrect. There is one correct answer.
Yeah, there is one correct list, and I'm going to give it to you right now. I'm going to give it to you right now.
There's a lot of good takes, and then there's the right take.
That's right.
At number 4 for me is Aqualung. This is an album that I listened to just through the grooves in my earlier years. it has borne the pain of that abuse when I was younger. I just wore it out, and I know it so thoroughly that I have over familiarity with it, I would say, is what the problem is for me. But it's not a problem because it's a gorgeous album. It's, it's flawless in every way: performance, songwriting, cover art. It just loses out slightly to the others. And like I said, this is a question of perception and experience of the four of us. Thank you, Jeff Dennis. You're wrong too. There is no correct order to these albums because to me they're all 10 out of 10. But in my own personal headspace, my own personal listening areas, Aqualung is going to be the one I go to the least often. Number 3 is Nursery Crime, another absolute flawless genius of a record. When you think about, and everyone else has touched on the embryonic state of Genesis at this point, and they were still able to create this masterwork of progressive rock. And that to me is astonishing. The other astonishing thing that has been touched on earlier is how many of these artists released other albums within a year's time of what we're talking about. Some of them a year before and a year after. That's what artists used to do. They used to make music constantly and consistently. And I think that's what we've lost today. And Nursery Crime, I mean, for me, obviously the musical box, but for me, the track is Fountain of Salmalsis. What an absolutely wonderful piece of composition from top to bottom. Hackett's innovative use of tapping, which would be two-handed tapping in that early era of that. Also doubling what Tony was playing. The two of them are playing that part together, honestly, but it's just astonishing. That's just one small ingredient in all of this. All the performances on that album are fantastic. For me, number 2 is Fragile. Fragile is, again, I love the entire thing. I love the solo bits. Mood for a Day is just, that's the maestro Howe doing what he does. Just, that was, I think, I'm going to talk about ELP in a minute, obviously, but I think maybe the aspect of Fragile where they sort of allowed one another the chance to do a track without considerations for the other musicians in the band, although that's not unique to that band on any track, but they gave themselves those solo bits, and that was very interesting. And I like what everybody did with their featured sections. Bruford's 5% for Nothing is really, really cool. If you sit down and analyze that with sheet music, it was written, he wrote the drum part, and all of the other parts are keyed into one part of his drum kit. So each instrument is playing in perfect sync with one part of his kit. If you listen to it closely, you can hear what I'm talking about. But
here's my question for you, Scott. You've obviously analyzed 5% for Nothing like probably no other human on earth has. But every Yes fan knows it's just he does it one time through and then the second go around, right? It's just the same thing repeated. Or is the second go around exactly the same as the first go around?
There are little, let's call them stylistic
little accents and ghost notes or what?
Yeah, for the most part, if you saw it written on sheet music, you would see that it would lay over itself and be a perfect repeat. But it's just astonishing to me if you sit down and listen to, okay, I'm going to listen to what Chris is doing. And if you key in on what he's doing, you'll key in on the parts of the drum part that he is playing with. Same thing with Steve, same thing with Rick. It's just really, really cool. And that's just one of the minor tracks on that album. I love Fragile. I always have loved Fragile. Roundabout has been heard way too many times, but it's still a fantastic track. Chris Squire, the bull elephant of bass guitar, just inserting himself into everything for the betterment of that music. I love his overall approach. John Anderson's voice floating over everything. What can you say? And that's my number 2. At number 1 is Tarkus by ELP. I will always go with Emerson, Lake and Palmer where there is a question. Where is there a versus this or versus that? ELP speaks to my soul. And what needs to be said, I think, here and remembered is this was their second studio album together. And they are absolutely positively pushing the available boundaries musically and technically that anyone had ever seen or heard. I would like to also suggest something else for folks who don't necessarily appreciate the side two. Flip the album, listen to side two first.
There you go.
Then listen to Tarkus. Okay. It puts a whole new slant on those songs if Tarkus comes afterwards and is the end of the record rather than the beginning. I started doing that years ago because I had a certain fondness for those other songs, but obviously Tarkus was the track that was what everybody gravitated towards because it's just an unadulterated masterpiece. Interesting.
But you know what else is an unadulterated masterpiece, Scott? Jeremy Bender. Absolutely. Let's start the album with Jeremy Bender. I think that's a good call.
Well, isn't Jeremy Bender isn't that on Trilogy?
No.
Jeremy, yes. I'm sorry. Are You Ready, Eddie is on.
Sheriff.
Yeah, the Sheriff is on that. I get those confused because they put them together on the live record.
Yeah.
And that's the one I really wear out. But I'd also like to point something out, a little kind of an interesting story about Tarkus. When Steven Wilson was doing his remixes for that, he discovered that the very end of Tarkus was not there. The very end of it. There's a section right before the da 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 where they end it and that held out chord. And what he determined was they flew that section in from the beginning of the song and tacked it on to the end right before the ending. So if you listen to that track with New Year's, there's a section right before the end section that was actually flown in. Nobody did that in those days. Well, they did, but not to that extent and with that level of a complexity to the music. With ELP, like I said, I think if ELP had been a 4 or a 5 piece, the music would not have been as good because those three egos were so enormous.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a wonder they ever got anything done. But what they did get done, they got done in spades. And
well, Greg hated that. Greg despised it.
Yeah,
and I had read that for years that he hated it. Hey, Scott, have you tried playing that on bass?
It's tricky. Yeah,
that's a tricky little bass figure.
He makes it look easy. If you see him playing,
he does, man.
He stands there like he's bored. Yeah,
you got to do the whole first fret on a bar. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's parallel fifths and it's and fourths and
it's a rough bass line. And we've got Naomi from 365 Days of Prague in the house. It's not really an all-star panel unless you're on it, Naomi, but one of these days we'll get you back up on here. Absolutely. And congratulations on your big old hit, the Prague Iceberg. If you guys haven't checked out Naomi's 3-hour masterpiece, definitely check it out. I should put a link to it in the description. It's that good. Naomi, absolutely. We love you.
Scott, it's the Emerson, Lake and Palmer of YouTube videos.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. It is. It's just pure epic. It's awesome. Everything Prague should be. Completely over the top, overblown, pompous, way too long. It was absolutely perfect.
How close was this album to not being released because of Greg Lake? Was that actually a thing?
The band almost broke up.
Yeah, they almost split up
entirely.
Hey,
look who we... Oh, what? This is so good. Hold on a second.
Hello.
Everybody, this is Fiona.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi.
Of course, y'all know Tara.
Oh, yeah. Tara, good seeing you.
Yeah, good seeing you too. Well, I can't see you now, bro.
Yeah, but we had to do the solo. We had to put you guys big. It's not every day we get, all this Irish greatness on screen at the same time.
Yeah, we said we'd pop in and see what the reaction would be like. But...
Oh, the reaction's been good.
Yeah. Nothing about Prague. Fuck off.
So what, Tara, what have you and your friends been doing since they've been in Canada?
We've just been showing them around the place, and they've just been doing Canadian stuff, I suppose.
Lots of poutine.
Yeah.
Lots of
Canadian stuff. I don't know. Wayne have to clue me in what that actually means. Canadian stuff. I don't understand that. But
It's different. It's different even from province to province. So
Yeah. That's exactly it. Tim Hortons. We're actually going. We're going to Niagara Falls tomorrow, so we'll be doing that. And they've been to Toronto a couple of times, and now Fiona understands why I'm like, oh, the traffic in Toronto. Now she gets it. She drove here from Toronto, so she gets it.
Yeah, exactly. We come from a little tiny island over here, and it's like
a little bit of a culture shock, I would imagine. Hey,
Yeah.
Cody, is it your turn? Do the girls want to sit in while you do your thing, or was Scott still wrapping up?
Well, I was just wrapping up Tarkus, and Matt was talking about Tarkus.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, the girls are leaving. Okay.
Bye.
Well, good seeing you. Well, that was fun.
Matt had a question about Tarkus. The rumors and statements and accounts of the making of that album could be applied to the making of any Emerson, Lake and Palmer album. They nearly broke up every time, and that's not inaccurate to say.
Yeah.
The only time they didn't nearly break up was while they were making In the Hot Seat, and that's mainly because they were never in the studio. That's an Emerson, Lake and Palmer that lacks a lot of Emerson and Palmer, frankly. Anyway, but yeah, the accounts of Tarkus almost being the end of the band, as I understand it from people closer to the situation than myself, nearly broke the band up. But that was the one time where it was really close to not happening. Greg, one of his insistences in joining the band in the first place, and he had to be convinced by Emerson to do this. He insisted that he was the producer, the sole producer.
Yep. And
he took that job very seriously. And some of those records are very, very well produced, I think. Yeah. So, but yeah, to answer your query, Matt, I do believe that they came close to calling it quits at that point.
Oh boy. Peter Jones is upset that we haven't mentioned Vandergraaf Generator enough. Well, let's see here. Okay. I'm just going to hold it up. Is that going to make you happy? There you go. I agree. It hasn't been mentioned enough, but that's all right. It wasn't one of the four, so it wasn't going to get mentioned a whole bunch. That's just how it goes.
I did not have any time to prep, literally.
No, we had 10 minutes. He's like, hey, what's the topic? I told him, I'm like, hey, you want to come? And he's like, sure. So there you go.
Prague Archive has Pawn Hearts at number 3. So.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we're wrong. They're right. It's okay.
Yep. No, because they have Tarkus at 30 or something. So they're clearly wrong.
Yeah.
They don't know nothing. They don't know nothing over there,
I'd like to point out how bad this stuff is for you.
Oh, it's the best. Prague Archives only has one Emerson, Lake and Palmer album in their entire top 100. So clearly there's something wrong with the collective ears of the folks over there. But that's all right. We're not going to slag on them. What we are going to do is listen to Cody's take on 1971. And I'm really excited to hear what you have to say, youngin.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Sort of coming up with the concept of this idea with you, Scott, and just thinking about these records and doing the homework and listening to them a lot. And my list might surprise you, especially because most of you know who my favorite band of all time is. That'd be Genesis, right? But we'll get to that when we get to it. We're going to start off. So I don't think any of these albums are bad in the slightest. So I'm kind of putting this as going from great to greatest. Because I don't have a bone to pick with any of these things, really. But I did. So at the start of my list, we're going to go with Tarkus from Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Side 1, one of the absolute greatest sides ever in progressive rock, especially when Carl Palmer, they come in with that. I love getting behind the drum kit and just practicing that whole segment of the song. It's just so cool. I love that 5 intro, just awesome. And the whole piece is so epic, just the way it goes through all these sort of different transitions and parts, and just fantastic. Side 1, absolutely amazing. Side 2, I like side 2 as well. I don't have any problems with. I like Bitches Crystal, Jeremy Bender. I like all the songs on that too. But it's kind of like maybe the way you said it, Scott. I think that's like if they had have maybe reversed the sides, it like the overall fan
Try it.
reaction has been a
Try
little
it
bit.
sometime. Yeah.
I should.
Yeah.
But
Try it.
I think it's a great album. It's not my number 1 Emerson, Lake and Palmer album, but I do like this record a lot. But yeah, coming in at the beginning here, my number 4 is Tarkus, ELP. This one, I had a really, really hard time placing it on the list. Because I love this band so much and I adore this record. I just adore this record. And actually, this is probably one of my most listened to records this year. Like even before this, all summer I was just like, you can ask Tara, I was just constantly putting on tunes like Mother Goose and Up to Me. So this was really hard. Like, is it number 3? Is it number 2? Is it number 1? This is really hard. So, but anyway, I just put it above Tarkus. Of course, this opinion could change next week. All these opinions are not solid. They could change by the day. But this is how I'm feeling today. So Aqualung, just a fantastic record. This would be the first Jethro Tull record I ever heard going back to high school. I had a friend who was into all this sort of classic rock stuff like me. Before I even really knew what the term progressive rock was, he was playing this a lot. And, just had me totally getting into, the title track and things like that. And then, of course, on my own, I'd go and search out Thick as a Brick and end up, just this band just changing my life, right? But Jethro Tull, Aqualung, fantastic. And some of the songs over here on the radio, you will actually still hear on classic rock radio, like Locomotive Breath and all that. But I love the tunes like My God and Cross-Eyed Mary. And, if you guys haven't heard Iron Maiden's cover of Cross-Eyed Mary.
I was just going to say that. It's really good.
Bruce singing it like 10 octaves higher than Ian Anderson does. If it's even possible, but he does. And one of the songs that really stands out to me is, from a lyrical point of view, is Wind Up. Because it's, you just got to look at the time that this would have come out and where the world was at. And the sort of religious takes, and I'm not a religious person in the slightest. I'm a very spiritual person, so I'm not swayed by by anyone else's faith. You're allowed to feel how you feel. But something about the lyrics in this song, it's this whole take on you can still believe in a greater power, you can still believe in God, but you don't have to wind up in church on a Sunday. Like that's some of the lyrics on this whole record is really, really well done. And that song just stood out to me, just for, again, because you got to consider where the world was at when this would have come out. It's kind of different now, but in 1971, that was a whole lifetime ago, right? But, yeah, Jethro Tull, Aqualung. I just love this record. And the acoustic folky bits on this, too. Cheap Day Return, Mother Goose, Up to Me. I love those little tunes so much. So much. Oh.
Hey, Matt, do you know what Nina's talking about there?
Yeah, my daughter must be watching with her, my little toddler. She's wondering if I'm on a meeting with coworkers. You could say that.
Oh,
say hi to Nina and Paloma, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Daddy's working.
Don't listen to Cody. Go to church on Sunday.
Oh, no. If anything, don't listen to Ian Anderson. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, Jethro Tull, that's one of my favorite records of all time. And I wouldn't even say that this is my number 1 Jethro Tull album, and I love it this much. It's fantastic. And it was so hard to place, so it ended up coming in 3rd place. And you would expect that this next one would be my number 1 because they're my favorite band of all time. But coming in at number 2 today, and possibly today only, Nursery Crime.
You don't have to worry about the wrath of Jeff Shilka today.
You guys mentioned the production. Fair play. Yeah, it is a bit muddy, but when you listen to it, it really, at least for me, listen to some of the songs on this, it really takes me to just a different time. It takes me to a different place in my head. it paints a lot of pictures for the listeners. The compositions on this just totally outshine any faults in the production.
I'd like to point out here, Cody, if I might. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
The 2007 remaster of that album is spectacular, and for those that feel that it sounds uneven, and it does, I don't know if it's available on vinyl, that remaster, but on CD, it really does make up for some of those shortcomings, I think.
It is. I have the 70 to 75. Let me just go grab it real quick.
Yeah, that box set. That's the one I'm talking about. Yep.
I have this feeling you're going to be redundant, Scott, after Cody's list.
I've got it here.
Oh, okay. It's vinyl in that set. Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That version of it, that remaster, really made up for a lot of those deficiencies.
And when you have that box set on CD, which I also do, you get the surround sound mix of it, which is awesome.
Oh, I've not heard that yet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I love the 5.1. People have said lots of things about Nick Davis's remixes of these albums, but I find the 5.1 mixes to be really cool. It's just maybe some people just haven't heard the 5.1 surround sound mixes, but I'm a sucker for surround sound when I can get it. Believe me. And
so Cody, you need to go, but Fiona can stay.
Fiona can stay. What about Tara?
I guess Jeff knows she's spoken for.
Oh yeah. Fair enough. How respectful of you, in a sense, while still.
Oh, what a good guy Jeff Davis is, right? Jeff Dennis, good guy.
But yeah, I do like this record a lot. And just listening to some of the songs on this really takes you to another place. Just generally, it's like, imagine being alive when this came out and being, of the age to actually, absorb it and listen to it. It's really cool. And of course, I'm in that era, obviously the last, 10, 15 years, actually the whole 26 years of my life. But just this record so much. Harlequin, and we know the big ones, right? We know the Fountain of Salmacis, we know the Musical Box, but what about For Absent Friends and these short little ditties? I'm in it and I love it. Harold the Barrel, yes, someone mentioned that needed to be brought up here. It's a wonky tune. Seven Stones is all right. That's not a go-to track for me. It's fine, but the other tracks on this is just fantastic. And I love sitting behind.
I love Harold the Barrel. Anybody that disses Harold the Barrel is wrong. Absolutely dead wrong. It's so much fun. It's so awesome. The different voice things. And it's so short and sweet and awesome. And it goes so many places in its short run time.
The way they do dialogue in that song too. And you quickly transition from little bits of spoken word. Yeah.
I love Harold the Barrel. Seven Stones is all right. But I'm a fan of Harold the Barrel, especially when it just totally goes for that change and it goes, I was many miles from. It's so cool. Yeah, you're right. It definitely goes around the world in 2 minutes.
Prague, my friend.
Yeah. And Seven Stones is all right too, but I heard the old man tell his tale. Cool lyrics in that song, but getting behind the drum kit and playing along the tunes like the Fountain of Salmacis or Salmacus, however the heck you say it. Just awesome. I mean, listen when they go into that really jazzy middle bit, and listen what he's doing with the toms mixed with the ride cymbal. I don't know how you can do that with two hands. That's really hard. You're gonna need 3 or 4 for that. What? Listen intently to what Phil Collins is playing in that part there.
He's just amazing. Drumming.
Yeah. You sing very well, Cody, but you are better on drums. Hey, if y'all haven't seen my drum covers, go check out Brockway's Vinyl Bites. I got lots of drum covers up there, and I even just did a Genesis one a little while ago too. But number 2, Nursery Crime. Now here comes Jeff Shulka. Fragile. I mean, you got Heart of the Sunrise here. Even with the little We Have Heavens and all that. You got Heart of the Sunrise. You got South Side of the Sky. And I love the solo bits on this, too. I don't have any issue with the way this is. To me, it really takes a page out of the Beatles book with the White Album, where that feels like it's more like 4 solo albums kind of perfectly blended into one. And I feel like that's kind of what they're going for here. and it's a stone cold classic record. I mean, starts off with Roundabout. That was a massive hit for the band, and Tool too. Cody. Oh yeah, I just did. He's talking about the Schism Tool drum cover that I just put up on my page. But yeah, thanks, Peter. And yeah, so you got Roundabout being a massive top 40 hit for the band, including all those god awful single edits that you would have heard on the radio at the time. Good lord.
Yeah.
It's like doing a single edit. Like if you get a copy of the Who's Greatest Hits, you get the 3-minute version of Won't Get Fooled Again. What the? No,
No.
it's wrong.
Wrong.
I heard a single edit of Roundabout, and it was like when it goes into the like the last part, in and around the lake, it goes into that, and all of a sudden it just bangs in, like right after that ends, it just bangs in right into the second half of the solo. It was absolutely terrible. Why would you do that to such an amazing song? I get radio's had like a limit, like a time limit on things, but God, get with it, people. Like, anyway, yeah, just a classic record. Chris Squire, obviously Rick Wakeman, kind of coming in to show the world that he could do the Bowie thing and just kind of be like a side guy, but he really takes lead in a lot of this. And this is their second record of that year.
Yeah.
Like in February, you had the Yes album come out. Then they lost a member, got a new guy, and in November of the same year, they got Rick Wakeman.
Yeah. And they write Heart of the Sunrise and Roundabout
Roundabout
their first rehearsal.
Yep.
Wasn't the recording of Close to the Edge closer to Fragile than the Yes album?
That's correct.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that is correct.
So it's like
Because they were all like within 18 months
Bang,
of
bang,
each
bang.
other somewhere there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about, but before I stop, I want to talk about Bill Bruford a little bit and just some of the awesome drum stuff he lays down on this. I mean, a couple of years ago, before I was even really on YouTube, I did a cover of Heart of the Sunrise. And my God, the nuances and the subtle bits and pieces in that song is absolutely impeccable.
Yeah.
And the song, The South Side of the Sky, the way he comes in after the big thunderstorm sound, and he does this thing where it's perfectly in time, but he sounds like he's falling sort of down the stairs.
Yeah.
And he just comes in perfectly. It's just absolutely impeccable. Just the way the whole band is just fantastic.
I think the real tribute to Bruford's part on Heart of the Sunrise is that's really the only song that Alan White pretty much plays his parts precisely when he played them live. He didn't vary from Bruford's parts on Heart of the Sunrise. And he varied on almost everything else that he played. He added his own thing to it. When they played Heart of the Sunrise live, he pretty much stuck to what Bill played because that's the only thing that was reasonable and sane. Tribute.
Only thing that made sense in the song, in the context of the song. And
immaculate playing.
I'm on record as saying that Bruford's performance on Heart of the Sunrise is, it's probably not like the best drum performance in history. It's my favorite, right?
Yeah.
There's just the feel, just the taste level. Every single, ghost note is perfect, and his ride cymbal just sounded so good. And that Ludwig snare he was using, what he calls the fragile snare, he only used for the one album. The only album that has that ringy snare, like, oh man, it's just so good. I just love it. Amazing.
Yep. I'm right there with you. Yep.
It is, and Bill Bruford is just a king, and it was an absolute pleasure. Jumping a little bit off topic here, it was an absolute pleasure to go see Danny Carey from Tool in Toronto with Adrian Ballou, Tony Levin, and Steve Vai playing the beat stuff.
Yeah,
and
get to see that tour.
We saw that show. It was astonishing.
Amazing.
It was so good.
Stuff.
We were only about the second row, and I got to meet the band beforehand.
Oh, nice.
It was killer.
It
was killer. But and to the fact that Bill Bruford gave them his blessing, that must be like a real cool thing, because he's impeccable. And to anyone that needs to hear it, go back and listen to I'm sure everyone's heard the song 10 million times. Go back and listen to Heart of the Sunrise and listen what he's playing in the verses. Obviously we know the big listen what he's playing that sort of accentuates the bass lines and stuff in the verses. It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, some of the best stuff I've ever heard. I couldn't. Yep, you're not wrong, Cody. You're absolutely right today. Wow, that's crazy, insane. Well done. Anyway, we're going to go a little bit long today because I do want to talk a little bit more about 1971. Behind me's the wall of 71, right? I've got let's see, a little bit of Can, Tago Mago, a little bit of Rod Stewart. Every picture tells a story. Who's next? We mentioned King Crimson Islands. You notice the top row, though.
Yeah.
That's the right order. That's the order right there.
Wow, did I? Wow,
there you go. There you go. That's the order. Anyway, but some records I did want to talk about. I know people are upset we didn't get into detail on Pawn Hearts or Fool's Mate, right? He had 2 great albums in 71. It's insane. How about Black Sabbath? Master of Reality. Yeah, that was 71. Caravan in the Land of the Gray and the Pink. The Intermountain Flame. I mean, come on, man. The origin of that sound. Somebody in the comments mentioned Led Zeppelin 4. Sure. Why not?
That's a monumental album for me right there.
Acquiring the Taste. Come on. What a great album. Pink Floyd Metal.
Oh, yeah.
And the Yes album. But what's really funny is almost all those albums I wasn't listening to in 1971, right? I came a little bit later to most of those records. So the 2 albums that I actually listened to in real time in 1971, and number 2 was Janis Joplin Pearl. Man, I listened to that record. So that was the sound of 1971 in my house. But as soon as I got the headphones on and I was listening to my music, my most listened to album in 1971 was Chicago 3. Yeah. Man, oh man, this started the year, came out January 1973 or 1971. So it was the first thing I heard from 1971. I was a huge Chicago fan. My first love was Chicago. I love Chicago 3. But of the 4 we were talking about, what you see behind me is correct. And number 4, I've got Tarkus. Even though side 2 is great, it ain't great enough. It just isn't. At number 3, I've got Aqualung. It doesn't get a whole lot better than Aqualung. Oh, wait a second. It did with Thick as a Brick and a Passion Play. Nursery Crime. Oh, man, it doesn't get much better. Oh, it actually did with their, there's a recurring theme here, right? These are bands not quite at their peak. Fragile preceded Close to the Edge. Nursery Crime preceded Foxtrot. Tarkus preceded the Trilogy. And Aqualung preceded Thick as a Brick. All arguably these bands like apexes, but there's something about that spirit, that energy of a band almost there, and it's coming, and that's just so exciting about 71. I can make a case it was the best year of all for music, but I think that's 72.
Yeah.
For me, that'd be 73.
Yeah. Make a case for 73 also, and man, we've had a lot of people mention a lot of great records in the Peanut Gallery. If your favorite wasn't mentioned, I'm sorry. That's the way the cookie crumbles, Kevin, right?
It's how it crumbles. For me, Ram, that was mentioned. That was a big part of my year live that year. When did the Best of the Guess Who come out? That was around then too, I think.
Share the Land, I think, was their 71 record, right?
No, Share the Land would have been 70, and then the Guess Who Best of one would have come in 71. That's right.
Yeah,
71 was the best.
That was another Ram and Best of Guess Who. Boom.
71.
And I got to agree with Bert Carlson. If you guys haven't heard Satori by the Japanese band Flower Traveling Band, that's a crazy record. It's absolutely amazing. No, you're right. I didn't mention it. I had it written down. What else didn't I mention that I had written down? Oh, the Moody Blues. Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. Never gets any credit. I actually really like that album. That came out in 71 also. Oh, so just an amazing year, Wayne.
Scott, when did those, off the top of my head, when did those Happy the Man records come out?
What 76?
Was that later?
77?
That was much later. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. They sound like the early 70s.
They do, yeah. But the Ameriprog thing, what was so weird is that if you look back at 71, and these were bands that were selling millions and millions of copies, filling stadiums, yet we weren't seeing the tail, right? You weren't seeing like young musicians looking up to Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and saying, I want to be that when I grow up. It didn't happen. And the reason it didn't happen because wanting it ain't good enough. You got to have a little something called talent to play the prog. And that's why I never put out a prog record in my entire music career. I didn't have that kind of talent, man. I'm not Scott G. Davis. But anyway, guys, Kevin, thank you for joining us. Next week, we got a big deal next week. We're going to be looking at the best comebacks in the history of prog. And to drive home the point, I've got Kevin Dodson from the Madrigal Project going to be here Sunday. They've got a brand new album called The 11th Hour. Kevin, you've been playing some tracks on prog radio, haven't you?
Yeah, and their previous stuff is great too. They got 3 albums, and they're a comeback. How many years was that between albums for them? 25 years or something crazy?
Something like that. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So that is this Sunday, talking about the best comebacks in the history of prog with Kevin Dodson from the Madrigal Project. Wayne, how's that sound? Does that sound like a good episode? Is that something you'd want to watch?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, whatever.
Definitely.
It doesn't matter what he says. I'm just going to tell him he's wrong either way.
Yeah, it's all good.
One more to mention for 1971. It's not prog, but it's this.
Yeah. T-Rex. There you go.
I think this is such a fantastic record. I mean, since we're going a little bit off the books here, right? I love this record.
Talk about iconic covers. That's
yeah.
And you got Flo and Eddie on one track too, right? So there's the prog connection.
Hey, what about Joni Mitchell Blue?
Oh yeah, and like you said before, Carole King's Tapestry.
Carole King Tapestry.
Yeah.
Sly and the Family Stone. There's a riot going on.
Peter
man,
French
this episode could go on forever.
Peter French had 2 with Leaf Hounds and the Gora Mushrooms, and In the Hearing of Atomic Rooster.
On and on it goes. We might have to do a part 2 on 1971. This has been awesome. Matt, thank you so much for coming back. You were an awesome guest the first time. We're so happy to have you back. Are you game to join us again?
Oh, absolutely. This was great. Right. All these regulars.
We'll talk snakes, no snakes. Peter Jones is asking the eternal question. Oh, thank you so much for being here on behalf of my amazing guests, my all-star panel. I couldn't do it without you guys, but I couldn't do it without Billy Bob. And Billy Bob, it's time to bust out those snakes. Oh, we're going to dance with snakes and the world's going to be all right. I'll see you guys soon. I love you. Oh, you guys are the best. Peace.